Hello and welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Media. I am your sometimes host, co-host, whatever you want to call me. I'm the person who's not Max. It's me, Emily. And today I'm going to be talking about Conclave. Now you may be saying, Emily, you sound so much more energetic in this video than you do in like many other videos that you've been in on that channel. And you want to know why that is? Because Conclave is a fucking fantastic movie and I'm excited to talk about it. If you want to see what I would consider to be my personal best movie of 2024, then this is it. Obviously, I have now stated my opinion within the first 30 seconds of this video, but I'm going to talk about what makes Conclave great, what issues I had with it, few that there were, and I'm going to be talking about where I see this movie's path to the Oscars being, as with my other award season videos. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Conclave is a mystery slash thriller slash drama film that is about the passing of the Pope, and Ralph Fiennes plays a cardinal who has to lead a conclave to find a new Pope, and out of a number of candidates of other cardinals. So on its face, this movie does not sound that interesting. Just like conceptually. And that was my thought watching it. I was like, I'm going to watch this, but I don't know, maybe it won't be good. Maybe it's overhyped. It is not overhyped. They made Catholic Knives Out. This movie is a series of twisting, turning mysteries as people battle to be the next pope. We find out secrets about all of them. We find out different backgrounds and different controversies that they have. The movie is shot with this tense precision that it brings it to life in a way that elevates all of the mystery and tension and that stuff absolutely fantastically. It doesn't get too caught up in the Catholicism of it all, right? Like, this is not, God's not dead. But I do think that the locales that they use and a lot of the imagery associated with Catholicism that they use is absolutely beautifully done. And again, I think that this movie just shines as a tense, fantastic mystery film that has some twists that are predictable, some that aren't. I will say that I was quickly able to deduce which of the cardinals who was vying for the papacy would wind up becoming the Pope. And I am happy to say that I was able to deduce that correctly. However, there were still a number of twists in the film, especially the last one that I definitely did not see coming. And out of respect for this movie as a mystery film, I am going to say you should just go watch it. I'm not going to be talking about any of the plot twists in this review other than saying that they're extremely well executed, well done, and fascinating all the way through. So beyond that, what's good about this movie? The cinematography is brilliant. This might be the best looking movie that I have watched in a while, probably since Saltburn, which was a movie I didn't even really like that much, but it was excellently shot. This movie is just so gorgeous through and through. Everything is framed so perfectly. There's just so much good to look at in this film. It's eye candy through and through. Multiple times throughout the film when I was watching it at home, went, fuck, this is such a cool looking movie. And if you're just looking for a movie that's great to look at, this is where I would suggest that you go. Beyond that, it's extremely well acted. There are a lot of fantastic performances in this film from Ralph Fiennes, who is brilliant in this film. He was brilliant in The Menu. He was brilliant as Lord Voldemort. He said some stupid shit in an interview once, and as a trans person who was technically involved in the shit that he was talking about, I don't give a fuck, right? He said some dumb shit, but whatever. He was great in The Menu and he was great in this, so Ralph Fiennes still has my respect. John Lithgow is in this film, and he is absolutely flipping fantastic. I love John Lithgow. I've loved John Lithgow since I saw him in How I Met Your Mother, but he was great in Dexter. He's great in Daddy's Home 2. He's great as Lord Farquaad, right? John Lithgow is great in everything, and this film is absolutely no exception. Another person who I wanted to call out as being especially great in this film is Carlos Diaz, who plays a character named Cardinal Benitez, who shows up early in the film and is kind of the biggest question mark throughout it. And he plays this Mexican archbishop who was made an archbishop in secret. That's not a spoiler. It's revealed within the first 2 or 3 minutes of the character showing up. But Carlos Diaz does a brilliant job, which is fascinating considering he is not an actor by trade. He is an architect, but he brings a great subtlety to that role, and he executes on it super fantastically. So highly recommend watching the film purely to see the performance of someone who does not necessarily have a background in acting just totally kill it. But like I said, Lithgow's fantastic, Fiennes is fantastic, Diaz is fantastic, and Stanley Tucci is in this film as a progressive candidate for Pope, who is also great. I mean, Stanley Tucci is great in everything. This is no exception. He brings a lot to the table as being a sort of like populist, probably should be the next pope type of character. And all of these characters have their own secrets. All of them have their own stuff going on that is so interesting to watch unravel as we find out who is fit for the papacy and who isn't throughout the film. There's so much intrigue and twists and turns, and all of it is brought together again by this excellent aesthetic vision that strings the whole thing along and never lets up on the gas. This is a movie that by rights should have been boring. It should have been nothing. It should have not stuck out in my mind at all. But the absolute brilliance of the pacing, of the mysteries, and of the writing, this movie contains several big monologues for some of the characters. Carlos Diaz gets a pretty nice monologue at the end. Ralph Fiennes' character delivers a really strong monologue towards the beginning. And those speeches really stick out as being extremely well executed. I am a person who has studied a fair amount of English literature. I really like Shakespeare, so I love a good monologue in film, and these are some of the better ones. I could see some of these monologues being used as auditions for future roles. Like, these are all extremely excellent and just super cool to see. And it's cool to see movies not afraid of having big, eloquent speech moments, as opposed to this sort of dominant mainstream style that's sort of become a little bit more quippy. And when characters speak, it feels like they have to grandstand, right? Like they're preaching almost. And weirdly, for a movie about Catholicism, these speeches do not necessarily come off as preachy, but they come off with a lot of the right philosophical density and interest to make them actually fascinating to listen to. And the way that a lot of the ideas presented in those speeches wrap around throughout the film is just utterly brilliant. I know I'm gushing about this film, but it's far from perfect. Well, I guess it's not far from perfect. It's got its issues. It occasionally has moments where it drags a tiny bit. There are a couple of plot lines that feel like they go in circles slightly. Also, I will say Isabella Rossellini is in this film as a nun who winds up being involved in one of the sort of unraveling scandals as she's assisting with another nun who winds up getting caught up in something, which, again, I won't spoil. But where I'm going with this is Isabella Rossellini is great. Her character concept is great. A lot of the ideas she brings to the table are great. I wish she was in this movie more, because so much of this film and the ideologies that it wants to explore is progressive versus regressive theism, right? Like Stanley Tucci's character brings this very like, I support gay marriage. I support all of this stuff that's not normally associated with Catholicism to the film. And one of the central points that they talk about throughout the film is gender and the role of women in Catholic society. And in a lot of ways, Isabella Rossellini's character is there to talk about that stuff, to be a sort of vector for having those conversations. And I just wish that she had more on-screen time in the film to explore some of those ideas, because I feel like they would have strengthened some of the points that the film wants to make. Especially when you cast an actress as fantastic as Isabella Rossellini, it made me yearn for more of her in this film and more of her character, and to see more of those ideas around the sisterhood and their role in the Catholic Church and the role of women in Catholic society being explored, which is not to say that the film doesn't explore those ideals. It certainly does, to a bold extent, I would say. But it ultimately doesn't quite do as much as I would have wanted with Rossellini's character, which is, again, unfortunate, because I love Isabella Rossellini. She is a great actress. And as much as I would love to see her nominated for Best Supporting Actress this year, I simply think the lack of screen time that she has in this film is going to be a stopper on that nomination. So with that, I'm going to move on to the segment of this video where I talk about Conclave's path to the Oscars. In my opinion, Conclave is one of the most competitive films for the Oscar this year. Though I don't believe that it won much at the Golden Globes. It kind of got beaten out by The Brutalist. I would love to comment on it in relation to The Brutalist, but I still have not seen it because it is not currently easy to see The Brutalist in this country. So when I do a review of The Brutalist, which is coming down the pipeline, I will certainly make a comparison between the two. But to my mind, of the movies I've seen, Conclave is absolutely the biggest swinger in a lot of these categories. Actor in a leading role, it's certainly putting Ralph Fiennes in strong contention for that. He brings a brilliant, subtle performance to the table that I have a hard time thinking of a leading performance that I liked more, though I will admit I have not seen Colman Domingo in Sing Sing, who I have been hearing is like among the best contenders for lead actor this year. So if I get a chance to watch Sing Sing, if it's made available, I can comment on that then, but I cannot currently comment on it. Actor in a supporting role, we also have Tucci for this film, who is brilliant and every bit deserving of that nomination. However, supporting role is extremely competitive this year. I know I say a lot of categories are extremely competitive, but actor in a supporting role is particularly competitive this year. I think Kieran Culkin probably has the best shot at winning it for A Real Pain. He won at the Golden Globes, and he was the best actor in a supporting role this year, if I'm being fully honest. Like, I think that he fully deserves that award, and as great as Stanley Tucci is and is deserving of the nomination, I just think it's impossible to topple Culkin in that category this year. So that's probably where that's going to line up. But beyond that, cinematography, I feel like this movie has a very strong chance. Adapted screenplay, I feel like this movie has a strong chance. I wouldn't be surprised to see it nominated for Best Director, all that kind of stuff. This movie has talent overflowing from every single facet of its being. I know that I've been gushing essentially for the duration of this review, but I do genuinely want to communicate that I had zero expectation of goodness going into this movie, and it blew me away on every conceivable level. It is tightly written, tightly acted, tightly shot, with excellent imagery and meaning, right? Like, part of what can bug me with mystery stories sometimes is I like when a mystery story or a thriller or whatever has a point to make. I don't normally love mysteries for their own sake. Like, a lot of murder mystery stuff fails to grab me because I need there to be more. I need there to be more relevance to like the day-to-day life. I don't subsist on stories where there is a killer and the killer is caught. I want to know why they did it, what drove them to do it, what the meaning of all of it was. And when things get to the ending, I want there to be a takeaway, something that sticks with me. And what this movie is saying about religion and religious institutions is so refreshingly uncynical and fantastic. And I don't know. I feel like it would be easy to make this movie a lot angrier, right? Like, because when you're doing a movie that's exploring corruption in the Catholic Church, and I should specify not that corruption in the Catholic Church, but other corruption in the Catholic Church that they sort of make up on the fly. This movie is rated PG, so they don't necessarily address all of the famous controversies within the Catholic Church. If you go into the movie expecting that, you will be sorely disappointed. But I don't think the movie needed to address that because it wasn't trying to be about that. Even though it was about that in a lot of ways. I know I'm just saying words. This makes probably more sense if you've seen the movie. But what the movie is trying to comment on is this sort of move forward or die mentality that exists. And there are a lot of people, especially in religious institutions, who are very much traditionalists and who are very much like they want the world to stay the same because changing is to have to challenge the things that you believe. And when you have an institution that is fundamentally based on belief, challenging those ideas can be scary because challenging those ideas can topple the whole institution. And there are characters in the film who express this very sentiment. There are conservative papal candidates who express that, like, if we start bringing in progressive candidates for pope, then we are going to kill the church, right? Like, people are going to stop believing because as soon as we challenge one of our beliefs, the whole institution comes toppling down. So this movie is based on a novel, and I will say that the sentiment of the novel and the film, I presume the sentiment of the novel, I haven't read it, but the sentiment would be so much less impactful if it were angrier or more cynical or cruel towards people who believe in religion, right? Like, I think a movie that wants to be about exploring corruption in the Catholic Church has the opportunity to dive into really cynical, angry territory, which I get it. Like, I get frustration at religion as a topic. I have been frustrated by experiences that I've had with organized religion. But I think what actually bugs me the most is when people sort of take it as all belief is just idiocy, right? Like when people take it to that like r/atheism sort of territory that goes into like, oh, if you believe in God, you're stupid and an idiot. And the only way to operate in the world is to believe in nothing. This movie doesn't say that. It's certainly critical of the way that religious organizations work, but it's not doing it in such a way of like faith is bad, religious organizations are bad, but simply stagnating and refusing to change the things that you believe or adapt them to new ways of looking at things is death. And that is such a beautiful and impactful and well executed message. And I was impressed. I was overjoyed watching this film because I have never seen a movie that is so compassionate both to people who believe and people who don't believe, right? Like, it's not necessarily saying that people who don't believe are like, they don't come up very much in the movie, but it certainly isn't saying like Catholicism is objectively good, but rather that Catholicism isn't innately evil, religion isn't innately evil, but stagnation and conservatism in the traditional sense, right? Like the sort of idea of we have to keep things the same, we have to adhere to tradition, all of that is the death of any institution. And I think that that is a message that comes across beautifully. The movie is executed beautifully, and it nails every single point that it wants to make. So I highly recommend Conclave, probably more so than any movie that I watched in 2024. It is a brilliant piece of art and more than worth your time. I heartily recommend it. Thank you for watching this video. That's the end of my review of Conclave. I hope that you guys have enjoyed me hosting a few more extra videos on this channel. I am trying my darndest to contribute as much as I can to the channel this year. 2025 is going to be a big year for $1 Million Media, so I hope that you guys will subscribe because we have some truly awesome stuff coming down the pipeline this year. Every person who works on this channel. Beyond that, yeah, please subscribe. Please like and share this video. Have an awesome day. Thank you.